Welcome. Anyone else? Okay. Finally, if there's anyone here for their first time at the Treasure Map meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, would you please stand and so we can recognize you? Any first timers? There you are again. Welcome. And what is your name, ma'am? Michelle. Welcome, Michelle. Lastly, is there anyone here for their first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting? Guys, we have some chairs up here too, so plenty around. No problem. No problem. Anyone here for their first time? If you are here for your first time, we do have a special gift for you. Please see us at the break. We'd be happy to share that with you. Thank you. The Treasure Map meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous believes in working the 12 steps as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor. There are many home group members here tonight that are willing to be sponsors. If you are new or if you don't have a sponsor, you can stop at the back table over here during the break and see myself or Randy. Randy, would you raise your hand? Thanks, buddy. For names and numbers of home group members who are willing to be sponsors. The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous celebrates sobriety birthdays on the last Thursday of each month. Treasure Map home group members celebrate each month of sobriety for the first 12 months, then each consecutive year thereafter. If you would like to make Treasure Map meeting your home group, please see again Randy at the side table for details. Current list of birthdays tonight that we will be celebrating. Brian with 3 months, Matt with 6 months, and Kevin with 7 years. So if you're out there and you have additional birthdays, we certainly want to, so, pardon me? 7 months. If there are additional birthdays out there, we'd love to know about them. We'll take a poll and make sure that you get a chip. The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous is committed to bringing a message of hope to those who suffer from alcoholism. We believe this message is contained within the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and our personal experiences. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And now please welcome Scotty to read how it works.
I'm Scott, I'm an alcoholic. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaim, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if He were sought.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Now, would you please welcome my friend Stanley to come on up and read the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous?
Oh, please. Are you going to do that? I'm informed, man. Come on.
Stanley, by the way, is going to be our speaker. What date?
October 19th.
October 19th, 2019. Not 2019.
2019, yeah. I'm Stan Alcoholic. These are 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare comes first. Personal recovery depends upon a unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience, and our leaders are but trusted servants, and they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for membership is desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose: carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Thank you.
We talk a lot about home group membership at the Treasure Map meeting because we believe it is vital to our recovery. What does it mean to be a home group member? Here is a brief excerpt from the AA General Service Conference approved pamphlet on the AA group. Traditionally, most AAs through the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is the group where they accept service responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although AA members are usually welcome at all groups and feel at home at any of the meetings, the concept of the home group has still remained strong, the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group and might also affect AA as a whole, a process that forms the very cornerstone of AA's service structure. As with all group conscience members, each AA group, address that? Thank you very much, buddy. Over the years, the very essence of AA strength has remained with our home group, which for many members becomes our extended family. Once isolated by our drinking, we find in the home group a solid, continuing support system and friends, and very often a sponsor. We also learn firsthand through the group's workings how to place principles before personalities in the interest of carrying the AA message. Talking about her home group, one member says, "Part of my commitment is to show up at my home group meetings, greet newcomers at the door, and be available to them, not only for them, but for me. My fellow group members are people who know me. listen to me, and steer me straight when I'm off in left field. They give me their experience, strength, and AA love, enabling me to pass it on to the alcoholic who still suffers. If you are interested in making the Treasure Map meeting your home group, please see Randy at the side table during the break. And it's now my pleasure to move right into birthday night. So I did get an acknowledgement that we have one more birthday. Amy has 9 years. Is there anyone else here with a birthday tonight? We celebrate 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, all the way up to 12 months, and then each year after that. Okay, 4 birthdays it is. All right. So the first person I want to welcome up is Brian with 3 months. Can we have a round of applause for Brian? Hey, buddy. Happy birthday. You bet. So we have a special gift tonight for all of the birthdays. It's a pamphlet called The 4 Absolutes. There you go, brother. And this essentially is what they used before the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous was put together. So this goes all the way back to the early days in Akron and Cleveland. There you go, pal. You bet. Take your time, man. All you.
Brian, alcoholic. Hey, Brian. Grateful to be here tonight. That went quick. I don't know. This is the longest I've been sober and actually been sober. I'm working a program this time. I'm talking to my higher power daily, and that's doing wonders for me. 3 months ago was not in a good place. I was knocking at death's door. Either the alcohol was going to take me or I was going to take me. Just thinking a little bit about what I was going to say tonight, but that always goes somewhere on the way up to the podium. So, yeah, I don't know. These last 3 months, it's been an experience getting to grow, and not just by myself and with my sponsor, but with the AA community as a whole. I'm trying to get as active as possible. I'm trying to meet as many people as possible, trying to share my story as much as possible. Anything I can to give back was so freely given to me. Without this group and without AA, I don't know where I'd be. It wouldn't be up here smiling and happier than heck about being sober for 90 days. I can tell you that much. Yeah, I guess I don't have a lot. I'm just absolutely grateful to be here. Thank you all for being here and sharing this night with me.
Congratulations, Brian. Our next birthday is Matt with 6 months. There you go, buddy. Love you too.
Hi, my name is Matt, and I'm an alcoholic. So, 6 months. I had one of these before, and several other chips after that. But that didn't last forever, 3.5 years. And then I relapsed several times. You know, somewhere along the way when I was in recovery before, probably right after I got like my 6-month chip or something, I thought, man, I was the shit. Like, you know, I got this thing figured out. I'm doing all these things. You know, I'm meeting my sponsor. I'm going to meetings, you know. But at some point in time, you know, I think the first thing that really went for me was that I stopped talking to my higher power. Like my relationship was almost non-existent towards the end. And you know, this 6 months feels a lot more durable than those 3.5 years even did. So I thank my higher power. I thank all of you who are here. I thank my lovely wife who is here with me tonight, who was stuck by me through a lot of stuff. And this group, and well, thank all of you. Yeah, that's it. I think I'll pass. Thanks.
It's a good example of what we talked about earlier about home group. He's been involved in our group since really very close to the beginning of it. And in addition to that, has had multiple service commitments, especially he's our greeter at the door. So we appreciate that, brother. Thank you. Our next birthday is 7 months, Kevin. All right, Kevin. Good to see you, brother.
That's how my sobriety feels a lot of the time. Juggling around. 7 months. Up till the way over here, I thought it was 8 months. And then my wife reminded me that it was only 7. So thanks a lot. I've learned a lot in 7 months, but probably the most important thing that I've learned, it should have been obvious to me, is about gratitude and how I have to give gratitude before I get anything to be grateful for. For 20 years, I lived under the impression that I would be grateful for the things that I was given. And what a blessing to come to be able to have the clearness of mind to understand that I have to be grateful for something before I actually get it. There's a lot of things that I'm coming across after meditation and putting thought into it that are just blessings. My personal relationship, my interpersonal relationship with myself has become so much stronger in the last 7 months than it did 20 years prior to that. So super grateful to be here, super grateful for this meeting, and that's all I got.
Our next birthday is Amy with 9 years. No, I know we got one. We got it. I just got to find it, but it's in there.
Amy, alcoholic.
Hey, Amy.
Oh, it doesn't even feel like it's been 9 years.
Give her a 9-month coin, told her multiply it by 12.
Yesterday was the day. It was May 29th, 2010, when I sobered up. And the life that I had then, it doesn't even seem real. I always get emotional on birthday night, so just a heads up. I was thinking a lot about it, and every time I go back to thinking of the way that I used to think, it was so hard to think of the lie, to cover up the truth, and trying to go back and forth and making sure everybody thought that I was the greatest of everything and that I was the best person. And it was so hard. And the lifestyle that this program has taught me and the path that it guided me down, I don't have to do that anymore. It's so much easier to tell the truth. It's so much easier to live a life of freedom with that and to not have to worry about any of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still ups and downs and there's still hard patches, but this program, it teaches you how to live life. And it gives you some of the greatest things that you could have ever imagined. Like, I never would have thought that I would have as close of friends as I do. I never would have thought that I would have met a man that I love so much. I never would have thought that I would back to school, to let alone get 1 degree, but 2, to have the job that I have. Everything is because of this program. And all it requires is just a few simple things. Get a sponsor, work the steps, get a home group, get involved. Because when you're giving help to someone who really needs it, is the best feeling in the entire world. And I couldn't imagine not having sponsees. I couldn't imagine not being involved in the program. It is a beautiful life. And it's because of you, it's because of these rooms and these meetings that I get to have this. Thank you so much.
So a couple of thoughts. First one is, we normally don't do this, but there's a gentleman that's been involved in treasure map meeting since our inception. And he's kind enough, he's going to come out and speak to us in a few weeks on tradition 7, 8, and 9. And Matt is celebrating 15 years. Matt, would you just stand and let us thank you for your service to the treasure map group? 15 years from Matt. We are going to take about a 15-minute break. We're going to have some cake, celebrate these birthdays. After the break, we'll come back, and our speaker from Watertown, Matt R., is here tonight, along with his beautiful bride in the back and their little baby. So the baby will not be speaking. We're not, might be crying, but not speaking. And we're glad to have him. Thanks for coming, Matt. We look forward to hearing your story. So we'll take a little break, and we'll be back soon. Thank you. Hey, Scotty, can you know where the year medallions are? These are all months. These are only months. That's the only. These are all. Is there a second? I didn't see one. No.
We've got a bag. I'll find it.
Okay.
We've got it every year. So we got to make sure Amy gets her 9.
Hi.
Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you with that right here. We got a 9 here for you.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I don't know where's the
Did you get my invitation in the mail?
Have not.
Have not?
No, ma'am.
Weird.
Yeah. I know it's like September 24th, I think, or something. First.
I sent it to you to the address that you gave me on Insta.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. That's awesome. I told you we had it. I love you. Yeah, I saw that. I don't know where he went, but he was sitting out there. Okay. Nice.
It's crazy. I always cry every year.
Well, that's completely understandable. You bet. Completely understandable. He is. Todd, he was sitting right behind you. He came in a little late. He's actually supposed to be chairing the meeting. He came in a little bit late, so. Great to see you. Congratulations. That's good. We're going to get going in just a minute. We'll start up in just about a minute.
But I didn't see right back down that, so I think I'm safe. Yeah, I did not.
All right, just a few announcements as we get settled. Of course, this is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are glad you are here, especially the newcomers. In keeping with our singleness of purpose and our third tradition, which states the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. We ask that all who participate in this meeting can find their comments to those problems as they relate to alcohol or alcoholism, recovery thereof. We want to make a special mention to our online listeners. We have heard from many of you and are trying to make your experience even better. Thank you for being with us tonight. During this meeting, we ask you, if you experience a lap in service or hearing us, please let us know on our secret Facebook page. We will be monitoring that throughout the meeting. Interesting deal. I've been out of town for the last few weeks, and I was bouncing around a little bit in our fellowship, and we have several, which I didn't know, but I know now, several people, maybe 8 or 10, that tune in to us in the Winnipeg area up in Canada. So that was kind of cool. So welcome, Canadians. You're not American, but that's okay. Just kidding. It's a joke. Just a joke. It's actually not a joke. They're really not Americans, but it's still okay. Anyway. Okay. Monthly online fulfillment forms are available at the table on the side. Tradition 7 is available, where you can actually give to the Treasure Map group your online support. Right over the internet, just comes out automatically from your checking account. 12-step cards, if you don't have any 12-step cards, please feel free to take as many as you'd like. They're on the table there. On the front side gives the information about our meeting. On the back talks about the time and a place for your name and your phone number. So if you meet newcomers or other travelers on this road and you want to share your information, it's an easy way to do that. Our free Big Book study worksheets are available at treasuremapmeeting.com. These are being used to assist in personal Big Book studies for your own development, as well as complement sponsorship duties. We've heard from many of you, 2s, 3s, 4s, just sitting around the kitchen table going through those sheets, learning a little bit about the Big Book, so you're welcome to those. They're free. They are not the final word on the Big Book. We understand that we realize we know only a little. Special events list, there's many, many things going on this summer in Alcoholics Anonymous in this area and in this district. We'll just pick a few out to make a quick announcement on. June 22nd, the 8th annual Bike and Burgers Ride. It's leaving from West Side, going up to Brookings and back. July 13th, Sioux Falls Intergroup Annual Picnic at Falls Park. Please come out and enjoy that. Also that same day, where our meeting kind of stems from, Founders Day at Southside Alcoholics Anonymous here in town. There'll be speakers, food. Please come out and join us there as well. July 20th, Area 63 Assembly in Pierce, South Dakota. July 19th through the 21st, North Dakota Young People's Alcoholics Anonymous. North Dakota Young People's AA is in Bismarck and this year. And it's a tremendous way. If you're anywhere between the ages of 16 and 25, 16 and 30, you're going to love this. Tons of energy, fired up. It's not all people with balding heads and multiple chins. There's a lot of young people out there too, and they gather pretty enthusiastically up in Bismarck. July 26th through the 28th, the Pahasapa Mountain Conference in Deadwood, South Dakota. It's beautiful there. Feel free to come out. And from August 2nd through the 4th, Bad Axe Men's Retreat in Park Rapids, Minnesota. For any guys who have been to Bad Axe, could you raise your hand? Got a lot of them here. Bad Axe Men's Retreat is a tremendous weekend that we do every year. We bring in 2 speakers. This year is a gentleman named Bill C. From Torrance, California, and also Mike M. from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They're tremendous people, and a bunch of guys just kind of hang out in the woods and do AA for all weekend. It's a tremendous experience. Treasure Map Meeting is co-sponsoring a bus trip to the International AA Convention, July 2nd through the 5th, 2020. Details, along with many, many other conferences and flyers and experiences for the summer, are on that table over there. District 5 Corrections and Treatment Committee looking for folks to run meetings at in the Minnehaha County Jail, Work Release Center, South Dakota State Penitentiary. Background check is required. Minimum of 3 months of continuous sobriety, and you can contact Matt M. for details on that at matt@mcexpert.com. And our next group conscience meeting is scheduled for June 27th at 8:15 p.m. It is my pleasure now to introduce tonight's speaker. Matt R. I met, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. And it's been a great gift to watch him grow. Matt is a guy that I trust very much. He's not a person that is full of fluff. There's no air about him. He's gritty. He's honest. He's one of the best men I know. And I'd like you, if you would, join me in welcoming Matt R. from Watertown, South Dakota.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Matt Roby. I'm an alcoholic. And Mike, thanks for that introduction. That's by far the nicest introduction I've ever had in my entire life. So most of it probably not real true. But well, I just want to say thanks for having me come down and speak. I have spoke to this group, and it was at the other location one other time with a 10-minute speaker. But yeah, it's great to be back here and share my story for a little longer period of time. Like the new digs, I know it was under kind of unfortunate circumstances, but the acoustics in here are real nice. We'll say that. So I also want to say congratulations to the folks that got pins tonight. That's great to see. It's really great to be back here. For another reason, I'm from Watertown. That's where I have lived throughout my sobriety. But Sioux Falls really does still feel like my AA home in a lot of ways. I know there's a group here from Tallgrass tonight, and I will proudly say that I am an alumni of Tallgrass. I'm a two-time alumni, in fact. I think Dan called me a retread, something to that effect. But anyway, so this is the couple of disclaimers, I guess. One, this is the longest speech I've ever been asked to give, the longest time slot I've ever been asked to fill. So if it goes short, I apologize. And also, as I anticipated this coming up, it gives you a chance to reflect, and you kind of take stock, and you're gonna tell your story to folks about where you're at, where you've been, and what you need to do still, and where you're going. And part of that, you think, I'm really going to polish up my talk and hit the laugh, the laughing points, and make sure it's entertaining and that sort of thing. Well, that didn't happen. So I did it. I was able to take stock of where I'm at and that sort of thing. But if this isn't funny or real entertaining or anything like that, I apologize for that too. So anyway, so with that, I guess what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So as I said, I'm from Watertown, live in Watertown currently. I was born and raised in Watertown. I was born into a family, and turns out I was the only child, but I born into the family of recovering alcoholic. My dad was a recovering alcoholic. He passed away in 2010, 30 years sober. And so I actually never did see him take a drink in my entire life. My mom was an active member of Al-Anon for as long as I can remember, and prior to me being born, she grew up in an alcoholic home, and so I kind of had two different worlds there. I was immersed in the AA culture. I went to conventions and that sort of thing as a kid, but I never actually was active. Alcoholism was never present in my life. I thank God for that every day, that I didn't have to, my immediate home, there was no active alcoholism, but on the peripheries, and of course, as I would go to AA meetings and that sort of thing and conventions, I would hear all about it. But anyway, so I grew up in a middle-class home, Catholic, God-fearing family. Went to church every Sunday. As I got older, of course, I resisted that a little bit. My mom kicked and screamed and tried to drag me to church as much as she could. But I did grow up, I had nothing in my childhood that I can point to that, was some huge emotional upheaval or anything like that I can point to and say that, that's why I was alcoholic. Nothing of the sort. I really couldn't have asked for a better upbringing. That being said, I remember early on in life, feeling that I just didn't feel a part of in a lot of circumstances. I think you hear a lot of alcoholics say that, but I had plenty of friends, and I did well enough in school, and was part of all the activities you take part in as a kid. But I just always felt like there was something that I just didn't connect with. I've heard some speakers say that there was like most people get a kind of a how-to manual for life, and I just didn't get the manual, and so it just felt like something wasn't quite right with the way I was connecting with the world around me, I guess. And so as I look back on that time, having gotten into recovery now, I realize how fearful I was as a child. When I eventually did a thorough fourth step, I certainly had resentments that I recognized, but I quickly realized that a lot of my alcoholism is fear-based. I was afraid of everything. At Tallgrass, they give you a sheet to jog your memory about stuff you might be afraid of, and I could have just circled the whole thing because it was all there. So sorry, I got a little note here. Just got to make sure I stay on track. So yeah, I felt that's kind of the way I felt as a kid, that restlessness, irritability, and discontentedness that the big book talks about. I didn't really set out to start drinking necessarily. My first drink of alcohol was less than a third of a beer. Me and two other friends had found a warm beer in his dad's closet, and we shared half of it and dumped the other half down the drain. That was my first experience with drinking alcohol. So no effect there, but soon thereafter, I found myself in a situation where alcohol was available, and I took advantage of it. And the first time I actually got drunk and had that feeling of ease come over me, it was a family reunion in White, South Dakota, and it's probably appropriate that the first time that happened was at a family reunion, considering that side of the family's history with alcoholism. It just seems kind of fitting. But so that happened. I remember that night like it's yesterday. I don't know if non-alcoholics have such a vivid memory of the first time they got drunk. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I had 6 different beers. Each one was different. We stole them out of various coolers in this outbuilding at this farm, and 2 shots of peach schnapps. And that was my first feeling that was the first time I ever got drunk. Went back and slept in the tent, asked my cousin what this weird feeling was, and he was a little older than me, and so he had experience with alcohol, and he told me, well, that's, you're drunk. Oh, okay. So that was that. After that time, I proceeded to go through high school and sought out getting drinking as often as I could. I didn't immediately start drinking every day or anything like that. I still maintained decent grades in school and participated in sports and that sort of thing. But me and a group of friends, we would on the weekends, we would 1 or 2 nights in the weekends, we would sneak some beer down in the basement and drink as much as we could until we fell asleep, and that was that. That was kind of the pattern, I guess, in high school. I didn't really get in any trouble necessarily. My mom, being the good Al-Anon that she is, she could smell alcohol through the phone usually. I would call and say, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to stay overnight at so and so's house," and if I'd had a half a beer when I called her, she immediately knew that I'd been drinking already. So that was for a budding alcoholic, it was kind of rough to grow up in a home like that, because her famous line was, "Not a drop, Matthew." That was her famous line every time on the way out the door. But anyway, so got through high school, managed to stay out of trouble for the most part. Did my fair share of drinking. Got into college, and the drinking escalated. Of course, get away from home, you get a little more freedom, and again, I still managed to maintain my class attendance and managed to stay out of trouble for the most part. My freshman year, I did have a couple run-ins with the law and ended up
one night in jail my freshman year. That's the only experience I've ever had with sitting in a jail cell, thank God. But I did get in a little trouble. But for the most part, I kind of kept things together. But I still managed to black out 2-3 nights a week. Then on Sunday through Thursday, I would do what I had to do, and then Thursday through Saturday it was kind of a regular. That was kind of my regular drinking schedule. There was a point when I was in college that growing up with my dad in recovery, by that point in my life, I was well aware of what alcoholism was. I was well aware of what my dad's story was. I was well aware of, what AA was. And it was always kind of in the back of my mind that I needed to be on the lookout a little bit, but it never really stopped me. That being said, I guess there was a point in college where I don't know exactly what the circumstances were, but there was, I think I woke up on a Sunday after blacking out 3 nights in a row, and I thought, something may have happened, and somebody reminded me of it, and it kind of freaked me out that I didn't remember it. And so I think I went to a couple AA meetings. The guy invited me over to his house to try to, read me the big book and that sort of thing, and just didn't. I think I stayed sober for about a week or maybe 10 days or something like that. But that was my first run-in with really, taking a look at my drinking, I guess. It wasn't a real serious look. I was scared, I think, more than anything, and emotional. And anyway, I got past that and got back to my normal schedule of drinking. In Bill W.'s story, he talks about that feeling of him arriving. And so I really recognize that when I look back in my own story. When I turned 21, before you're 21, you can kind of drink as you can drink as you can get it. You get to college, it's quite a bit easier to get it, but you can't really walk into the liquor store and buy it yourself unless you have a fake ID, which I didn't have. But turned 21, I was in my junior year of college, and I had an internship. I was living in a duplex off of campus, and I had an internship that was paying me like $16 an hour. And I could go to the liquor store, and I could buy my own whatever. And I so happened to, I think I needed to start drinking scotch at that time. I don't know. So I look back at this time in my life, and I read Bill's story, and I have that feeling. Well, I think I thought that I had arrived. That was it. I was 21. I had a job that paid some bills, and this was what life was all about. Going to work and coming home and loosening your shirt and having some cocktails and drinking cheap wine or whatever. Turns out that was just the beginning of a pretty rough road. So I finished my undergraduate studies and ended up in law school in Minneapolis. And my drinking was basically a daily at that point. I wasn't getting drunk every night, but I was drinking a fair amount every night and getting drunk most nights, I would say. There was a patch in law school that my drinking slowed down for various other reasons. I don't know. I can't really explain it now, but that was when I first experienced some of the mental fallbacks of me not drinking. I had my first panic attack when I was in law school. I know, I don't know if not everybody can identify, I suppose, with anxiety, panic, and depression, that sort of thing, but that's part of my story. Ended up kind of going through a period where I was this pretty serious hypochondriac and had serious anxiety and panic attacks and that sort of thing. And turns out, when I looked, what the cure was for me was to continue the drinking I had been doing before, because I was too sober that I had too much time to think about whatever was this thing on my arm or something like that, So anyway, I soon realized that the cure to my mental illness was to continue to drink, to continue the pattern of drinking that I was on. So I did that, and again, my drinking was basically daily at that point. I did manage to graduate and came back to South Dakota at that point. I I'm trying to think of some highlights of that period, but it was go to work and get off work and go to the liquor store and do it on repeat every day. And that's kind of how I maintained for quite a while. There was a few, nothing comes to mind right now, but there was a few occurrences here and there, I suppose, that kind of scared me. But I thought that this was the way life was going to be. I was just going to go to work and start thinking about drinking at noon and be anxious all afternoon until I could get that drink, and then drink and go to sleep and get up the next morning and feel terrible about myself till noon, and then be anxious and start drinking again, and just do that over and over again. And then the weekends were great because you can start drinking at 8 in the morning, and then you feel really terrible on Monday because you drink all weekend solid. And I just kind of thought that, maybe this is what it is. I really loved alcohol, and I just I loved that feeling of ease and comfort that it gave me, until it no longer provided that for me, of course. So I was living in Pierre, South Dakota, for a couple of years after I graduated law school, and throughout that whole time, I was dating my now wife, who was living back in Watertown. I drive back every weekend. But even to get in the car, I usually drive. I'd leave about Friday night, 5 p.m. drive back to Watertown. But even to get in the car and drive back, and she might not even know this, I don't know. But it's nothing earth-shattering. But I had to have a few beers first before I could even get on the road and drive, because I was so worked up from the day. I had to have enough beers to calm me down, but not enough that I thought I'd be over the legal limit. So I was still full of fear, regardless of if I was drinking or not. I was still full of fear. I didn't want to get in trouble, but. So did that for a couple of years, where things kind of came to a head. Was 2012. I was kind of in transition, moving back to Watertown, and my now wife and I she had agreed to marry me for some reason, and so we were kind of in transition where I was going to move back to town, and I had this couple-month period where I was on the way out of my old job and kind of about to start my new job, and it provided me a lot of time to drink, and it culminated in I don't know, it was right just before Christmas, 2012. I kind of just went off the deep end and went on about a week-long bender and ruined Christmas, and apparently I was telling people that I was suicidal, and I don't really think I was, but I don't know that for a fact. But it was a whirlwind week, that's for sure. And December 28, 2012, I woke up at Tallgrass. And in fact, I hadn't even heard of Tallgrass at that point. My good friend Scott, who's in the room tonight, he had kind of arranged for me to, with my mom and my wife, to find a place where I could go. And I woke up at Tallgrass with Dan yelling at me, and I didn't know really where. It was kind of surreal, until we went to a meeting, until we went into town to the Tuesday or Thursday or Saturday night meeting or Sunday night meeting. I thought I was north of Sioux Falls the whole time. I didn't, I just didn't know. I just didn't know where it was. So, but the fog cleared, and you spend anybody that sobers up for 30 days is going to feel better, of course. I was pretty combative while I was there. The first person I met, I got there. I think deep down I knew I needed to be there. I needed at least a break from alcohol, if anything. And but the first person I met there, one of the other guests, told me that I come home every night from work. I buy a 175 of cheap vodka, and I chug half of it right when I get home, and then I sip on the other half the rest of the night. And I do that every night. And immediately I was like, that's not me. I don't belong here. And that kind of set the tone for that 30 days. I would hear speakers come in and hear the staff speak, and I'd always, in my mind, part of me identified, but I'd always hang on to the part that wasn't quite like me. That was that guy, and that's not really like me, and that was her, and that's not really like me. And at the end of the day, I wasn't, deep down, I just wasn't identifying with people. I wasn't trying to identify, to be honest with you. But I got out of there after that 30-day stint, and I felt better. Like I said, you sober for 30 days and you feel better. And I had intentions, I think, originally of giving it the old college try, but looking back on it now, I could never admit at that time to my innermost self that I was truly alcoholic. I went back home, went back to Watertown, went to some meetings. I didn't get a sponsor. While I was in Sioux Falls, there's a gentleman here who sponsors a gentleman in Watertown, and there was kind of this triangulation going on where I was supposed to hook up with this guy when I got back there and maybe ask him to be my sponsor, maybe somebody to be a good sponsor for me. Well, I get back to town, I go to this meeting that he's supposed to be at, and he's there, and but I kind of thought that he knew that he was supposed to be my sponsor, that he was supposed to come and approach me, and of course that's just not the way it worked. And so I kind of looked across the room at him, waiting for him to come and say, "Hey, I'm your sponsor," but he never did, and that was that. I never got a sponsor. Went to meetings for a few months, started to taper off, and then I wouldn't even say that I slipped. I wasn't ready to be done drinking. I just couldn't fully admit that I was truly alcoholic, truly powerless over alcohol. During those couple months, I was identifying different ways. Well, yeah, my life is manageable, this and this and this, and trying to find ways out of my alcoholism, justifying, saying that what I just went through a few months before was because of the circumstances I was in or whatever. But ultimately, I don't remember the date, but sometime in April of 2013, I started drinking again, and I drank every day again until I got back to Tallgrass 2.5 years later. It didn't immediately start out terribly, although my wife would probably disagree. We had our first meeting with the priest the next day after I started drinking again, and she wasn't too impressed when I showed up hungover to that after being sober for a few months. But thanks for sticking around, by the way. But anyway, it didn't immediately get terrible, but I started drinking again every day, and the work I was doing at the time wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't doing my role as an employee. I was back in my old habits of drinking immediately after work and doing it all over again the next day. And there came a point in 2015. As I said, I'm a lawyer by trade, or I went to law school, and I am a lawyer by trade, and I am currently a practicing lawyer. But during that period of my life, I had taken a little detour into a different industry, and I was not happy. I was drinking every night. I had gotten married, had our first child, and I was miserable though. I was happy with my circumstances on the outside, but I was miserable because deep down I knew that I was just on a road to that wasn't going to end very well. And so in 2015, I quit that job to start my own law practice, which really was, looking back, was just code for me being able to drink more, essentially. And I remember the first day that my last day on that job, my first day on my new solo law career, I thought I'd reward myself, and I was drunk by noon. And that, it's probably for the better that I did that, and I didn't continue to try to hang on by a thread at that old job and continue to get drunk every night, because it probably would have just prolonged me getting to where I am now. But that was in April of 2015, and with no steady job, and my wife was trying to raise our child, and she mentioned things on occasion, but it was never. She had other priorities to worry about. She had a full-time job and a child to raise, so she wasn't scolding me necessarily to the point that I thought I couldn't keep doing this for a while. But the bottom line is my body physically just started to shut down, to be honest with you. I don't know how much longer I could have gone, and I'm not even sure what the catalyst was looking back on it. There was one night that she had to work, and I was out of booze, and she had to be back to work in 5 minutes, I think, and I was begging her to run to the liquor store quick and come back with my booze before she went to work. And she kind of yelled at me and stormed out the door. And I don't know. It was kind of, in the next couple days were kind of a blur. I realized, you know, I could hardly eat anymore, and there was all sorts of other physical ailments that were making themselves apparent. That it was time to do something about it. You know, part of it was I was scared to quit because I knew what the detox was going to be like. I didn't want to have to go through that, but I knew that if I didn't do something at that point, I wasn't probably going to live to see 2016. So, you know, thankfully, the group of people that I did meet when I first was in the program for a few months, as well as a lot of individuals who I was fortunate enough to meet through my dad's own recovery. Matt happens to be one of them in the back there. You know, I knew who to call. You know, I had that luxury, I guess, that not everybody has. That the night I finally decided I needed to do something about this again, I think I called 4 or 5 people, and most, if not all of them, didn't even say hello to me. They knew exactly why I was calling. It was like, "Are you ready to quit yet?" And so it was pretty powerful. And so I went to a meeting. Again, went back to AA. I didn't think I needed to go back to treatment. I'd already done that once. I went to a meeting at noon. I was drunk at the meeting. I came home, fell asleep for 4 hours, and woke up and started drinking again. And at that point, I just knew that I couldn't. I needed to get away and get out of society for 30 days again. So reached out to Joan at Tallgrass, and she happened to have another bed, just one bed left, and so I agreed to come down on that Friday morning. Got there and couldn't keep anything down, and thought I better get checked out at the emergency room. Ended up in the hospital for 4 days in intensive detox, and went back to Tallgrass and did my 30-day stint there. And, you know, this time it was completely different. You know, I hung on every word that people said there. You know, the first time I went, it was trying to find the differences in everybody that talked to me. And this time it was, I knew, unfortunately it took what I went through to get to that point, but I knew that it was life or death. I mean, I knew that this was my only hope, was to find and grasp and hold on to this program as best I can. And so I was a little bit neurotic too. You know, I knew that I didn't do it right the first time, whatever right is, and I knew that I wanted to do it right this time. So, you know, I had a sponsor lined up before I left Tallgrass. I made sure Dan approved of my sponsor, and I remember after I did my 5th step, went upstairs, or after I did my 5th step, talked to the staff, and they point out the 6th and 7th step. You know, you review those first 5 proposals, and so I went downstairs to review those first 5 proposals, and I realized that my mentor at Tallgrass, not my sponsor, but my mentor, had not asked me to get on my knees and say the 3rd step prayer. And I had heard that people do that. And so I wanted to make sure that I had dotted every I and crossed every T. So I got on my knees in the basement meditation room at Tallgrass, and I prayed the 3rd step prayer, because as the book tells me to review, I realized that I may have left that stone unturned. So I did that. I wanted to make sure, you know. And so anyway, got out of Tallgrass, and like I said, I immediately got a sponsor. I went through, I guess, the proverbial pink cloud phase. I was pretty excited to be sober and alive and participating in AA. I thought that AA should be, you know, the religion of the world for a while, and wasn't, you know, I told anybody that would listen about my alcoholism and my sobriety and AA, and quickly learned, well, not real quickly, but quickly enough, that was probably not the best tack to take throughout the rest of my life. But so after that you know, that few month period after treatment, I was still, you know, trying to get my law practice going, and things were starting to pick up a little bit. But I remember one day I just didn't feel like getting out of bed, and I don't remember the exact date, but there was a turning point where I was real high for a while, and then all of a sudden one day it was just, life just hit me. You know, it was, okay, I'm sober. it's been, this early sobriety's been fun. I'm still in tons of debt. I'm still this, and this. I'm still not really, just kind of scratching out a living. And all of a sudden it became very overwhelming. But I knew what I had to do. You know, I was hopeful that period, that I would get through that period. And looking back on it, I did eventually. But a lot of days during that period, the only thing that I could look back on during the day that I accomplished was going to an AA meeting. And I would go there, and the people that sat there and listened to my story during that time were probably sick of hearing me talk about fear, because all I talked about was how fearful I was. And but I just kept going. I mean, even if my mind was just fixated on poor me and, you know, and that sort of thing, I knew I had to just keep going back and keep trying to do the next right thing. Eventually, you know, things started to get better, and I started to level out, and that's a good thing. I know that I could have easily picked up a drink during that period, and it would have you know, made me feel better temporarily, but I'd probably be dead by now. But anyway, so that's kind of what brought me to sobriety. Since that time period, we've added to our family, and you know, things have been going okay. You know, the highs and the lows are a lot more like this instead of like this, and that's a good thing for everybody that's involved in my life, especially my wife. So let's see here, what it's like today. See what it's like today. You know, today life is busy. I have a new job. I'm still a lawyer, but I work for the city of Watertown, so I have a full-time job. It's very busy. I have 3 children, and that keeps us very busy, and a wife that works full-time as well. So I do as much as I can with AA, because I know that without it I have nothing. But that being said, some weeks I get to 1 meeting, some weeks I get to 3, some weeks I get to 0. I mean, it's just a matter of trying to find it, and I find the time to squeeze it in. And I know that it's absolutely important. I'm still, you know, there's 2 programs, I guess. I don't want to get into that discussion right now, but I mean, I'm still maintaining my meditation and prayer, and I still have a sponsor. I'm still working the steps. I still have plenty of amends to make. I still have lots of fear that creeps back into my life, and a lot of emotional sobriety type things that I need to work on. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to share. Anybody have any questions? No, this is just. Oh, really?
I'm just curious. You haven't talked about your parents at the beginning, so I'm just curious about where they were at.
Well, thank you for asking. My mom's still living. My mom's still an active member of of Al-Anon. Surprised she hasn't started drinking, but no, she's an active member of Al-Anon. Now she has a father who was an alcoholic, a husband who was an alcoholic, and a son who was an alcoholic. And so she is an all-star Al-Anon for sure, and she helps us tremendously with our children. My dad, unfortunately, he passed away in 2010, right as I was last semester of law school. He passed away, 30 years sober. He was diagnosed with cancer on the 30th anniversary of his sobriety, and then he passed away 5 or 6 months later. So I appreciate you asking that. Thank you. But no, AA has saved my life, as anybody around me can certainly attest to, and I owe a lot of it. I owe a lot of my AA related success to some people in this room too. I mean, there's been a lot of without some of the people that reached out to me and helped me along the way, I wouldn't be here. So that's all I got, I think. Thanks.
That's a great job, Matt. Before we close, why don't we give one more round of applause to Matt and the birthdays who celebrated tonight. We're going to ask Matt to come up here. If you would, as a courtesy, if you could make a line there when after we close and come up and thank the speaker and Matt for driving in from Watertown, we'd appreciate that. And Matt, you want to come up and then we'll close? Thanks, buddy. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back, it works. Nice job, Pat. Good night to our folks online.
Thank you very much. I could absolutely identify with the anxiety attacks and what do you call with contact. I went through all of that. God bless you for sharing that.
Oh, do you? All right. Good book. Oh, really? What's your name? Okay.
Thank you so much. With that.
Oh, I wasn't at the meeting. It was a birthday meeting. But I wasn't at the meeting. You were up there? Oh, okay. Did you give a call? Okay.
It's like when you take and like so I got a 45 minutes and go like 12. Nice. And then just I was surprised it was awesome. That's exactly.
And all of a sudden he says,